What's good, y'all? It's your man Bentley Kyle Evans, and welcome back to another episode of the Hollywood Blueprint. Now, today we're talking about Harvest Studios. But before we begin, make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and tell a friend. I post a new video every Wednesday, so let us begin. Let's get it. Let's talk a little bit about the independent route when it comes to content creation. I decided to go independent. And what I mean when I say that is, I don't mean that I'm against the traditional way of getting things done when it comes to Hollywood, like the traditional method of pitching a show to a network or a studio and things of that nature. I'm not against that. And obviously, if the big leagues call me, I usually will step up and do a project for them as well. But the autonomy that you have as an independent means that you can go up and do whatever you want at any given time, and you don't need anybody else to greenlight you. You greenlight yourself. Now, for me, I became interested in being a independent content creator because for two reasons. One was I shot a feature film in 1999 called Rude Boy that I shot in Jamaica, and it was the first independent effort that I ever did. It was actually the brainchild of who has now become my partner, Trenton Gums. It was his idea to shoot something. We had these little cheap cameras, and we decided that we were going to go capture some content, and it became bigger than we ever imagined it would come. We actually ended up shooting an entire feature film with all Jamaican actors, and it was a wonderful experience. I'm sure we will go over that in other episodes, but I wanted to just bring that up to say that that was my first foray into producing something that was independent. But you have to remember, I came into the business from an independent filmmaker. Robert Townsend was an independent filmmaker, and Hollywood Shuffle was an independent film. So I really didn't even understand any other way of doing it other than doing it independently, because that's what I learned from. That was my blueprint. My roadmap was to do it independently. But here I am several years later, and I created a show, the Jamie Foxx Show, and did 100 episodes and 130 plus episodes of the Martin Show through the traditional entertainment portal, the Hollywood method, the way that Hollywood productions are done. And then I found myself back in a position of doing shows independently. Now, why did I make that decision to do that when I had already had so much success doing it through the Hollywood portal? Well, that's an easy choice. Hollywood stopped calling. No problem, no shade. It happens all the time. I think Hollywood, the whole Hollywood experience is that the powers that be only rock with you when they know that you can make them a whole bunch of money. And then when they feel like they can't really identify how they're going to make the money off of you, I think what happens is they kind of put you on ice and wait till your deals run out, and then they find the new version of you that's much younger, that has newer ideas and things of that nature. I don't think it's anything personal. I never have. I never took it personally, but I will say that it doesn't feel good when you're on the outside. Well, I found myself in that position after doing 5 seasons of the Jamie Foxx Show. I felt like the trends were changing. We had just experienced a Writers Guild strike in 2007, and I felt like Hollywood stopped calling Bentley Evans' name. My number was up. There was another 20-something-year-old that they were looking for, I'm sure. So in that, I decided to take a step away from the business, period. I got out of entertainment, and I fell back into what I had considered to be my first love, although I never perfected it. But my first love was real estate, because I had a real estate father. I had a real estate dad, and that's what he did. And he was driving a Lincoln Continental, and we lived in a very nice house in a very prestigious neighborhood. So I felt like maybe this is what I should be doing until I discovered Hollywood. So now here I am, years later, I fall into a position of being on the outside in Hollywood. So instead of me, feeling bad about it, I said, hey, I'll just focus my attention in Hollywood. It's still a product. I still have to take a product, and I still have to stage it, and I still have to do, work to it and paint it and put in new carpet and new kitchens, and then I'll sell it for a higher price. Same principles as selling a script or selling a production. So I tried that, and to be quite honest with you, I was rather successful with it in a very short period of time. I never got my license, but I did it from the standpoint of being a investor, a real estate investor, and through that experience, I mean, I was selling comedians' houses like you would not believe, because those were the people that were in my circle, comedians, and so I ended up selling Chris Spencer a home. I believe Chris still lives in that home to this day. I sold Kevin Hart a home, his very first home, as a matter of fact, through that experience. But then that experience didn't last long because the real estate market crashed, as we know, well documented, in 2008. Now I found myself on the outside of that business too. So I had to go back and rely on what got me to the party in the first place, what got me to a point to where my kids could go to private school and I could live in a nice home in a very prestigious neighborhood. And what was it that got me there? And it was that entertainment business. So I had to go back and I had to unlearn everything that I learned in the business, because when you're doing it independently, it's not the same rules. The rules don't apply like they did before. So I decided to try to come back in, come up with a project, and try to get my old agents to rekindle their relationship with me so that we could go out and sell a show or something. But when I started calling my old agents at CAA, well, they weren't really picking up the phone for me, or they would say, yeah, we'll have them get back to you. And the Christmas gifts all started slowing down every Christmas, where I was getting these wonderful gifts at first when I was a working client. But then as time went on, it's like, now you're just getting a card for Christmas. And then they don't even send a card anymore. You're looking online and you see that you're still on their roster, but nobody's taking your call. So they're not taking you serious anymore. So now what I had to do was come up with a way to make them take me serious again. And the only way that I could think of to do that was to do it independently. And so I had a few examples that had been set for me. I had heard about what Tyler Perry was doing. I had gone to see Tyler Perry do his play at the Kodak Theater in Hollywood, and I met him backstage, and I stood in line to meet Tyler Perry. I wanted to meet this guy that everybody was talking about, the playwright that was doing these shows or movies or whatever it was. Well, actually at the time, he wasn't even doing any of that. He was only doing plays. And so I waited in line and I met Tyler, and he says to me, when I said to him, hey man, I just wanted to say congratulations. My name is Bentley Evans. I shake his hand. He says, I know who you are. Of course, I was blown away. How do you know me? He says, because I wanted to be like you. See, the one thing that you have that I don't have, and that's television. You have TV. And I said, yeah, but the TV game is not quite as simple as you think it is. It's hard to kind of break into that whole TV thing. The gatekeepers won't let you in. It's hard to pimp the TV game. And Tyler's rebuttal was, watch me. And so I said, this guy's insane. This guy's crazy. He ain't gonna just walk into TV like that. And then 6 months later, I see on TV, coming to TBS, Tyler Perry's House of Pain. It blew my mind because he saw it a little differently than I had saw it, because I was entrenched in my way of doing things, which was the Hollywood way that I had learned. And so this was offering a different perspective of how to do things. So then I got the invitation to come to Tyler Perry's studio and work on one of his shows. I think it was Meet the Browns. And I went to Atlanta. I saw this wonderful studio that this guy built, and it blew my mind. I literally had tears in my eyes because I couldn't believe that a young black man had figured this out and did what Walt Disney had done, but did it in Atlanta, created his own studio. So with that in mind, I worked there for about 3 weeks, and I was even asked would I consider relocating to Atlanta, but I wouldn't. I couldn't do that at that time. My kids were in private school. All that stuff was happening in my personal life, so I wasn't going to uproot my family to Atlanta. But what I did do was I got the lesson. I saw what he was doing and immediately thought, I can do that. I can do that in LA. So after my 3 week stint, I believe it was 3 weeks, after my 3 week stint at Tyler Perry's studio, where I wrote 2 scripts of Meet the Brown and I made about $40,000. And trust me, y'all, I needed the money at the time. The money was running out. It was getting real dry. And so I needed that money and it came in handy for me. So when I came back home, I just started thinking of different ways on in which to get things done. But then it kind of like fell off the vine because I had other things that were more important to me, instead of just coming up with shows. I was trying to survive. I didn't know if I had to go get a job, a regular job, one of these companies, one of these corporations or what. But that was my real experience seeing the whole independent game go down, and it inspired me. And thank you, Tyler, for inspiring me. Although I had been doing it many years before you, you can always teach an old dog new tricks. You know, in the whole independent game, when it comes to the entertainment industry, one of the people that was very influential in me getting into the whole independent game was my partner in my studio at Harvest Studios, my partner Trenton Gums. Now Trent and I have known each other since we were 19 years old, and the way we met, it was just on a chance meeting. His brother was my first agent, and Trent and I were the same age, and we had a lot in common. We were young, partying, and we were both trying to break into the entertainment business. He was breaking in through the music side. He was a music producer, and I, of course, was breaking in as an actor. And so we had a lot in common. And so as years would go by, Trent ended up working very closely with Eddie Murphy. And then you know my story where I started working with Martin Lawrence and Jamie Foxx, and our paths just kind of went away from each other and we went our separate ways in life. Well, flip to some years later, Trent and I had gotten together, and he says to me one day, Bentley, we're going to do something big together one day. We're going to do something in the film and TV industry, and we're going to get Martin and we're going to get Eddie to do something together. Don't know if that will ever happen. Of course, Martin and Eddie have done films together, but it wasn't at the hands of Trent or I. But he said, we're going to do something big together. Well, it kind of just, I brushed it off my shoulder and said, maybe so. Years later, we're in the Dominican Republic for my 40th birthday party. And I took a group of guys with me. We all had a blast in the DR. But what came out of that was Trent reminded me of the conversation that we had and said, look, we're all enjoying ourselves. Don't you want to enjoy this kind of life for the rest of your life? Being able to go to remote places and rent big houses on the ocean and stuff like that. If we're going to continue to do that, we got to make money, man. We got to think outside the box. Remember what we talked about? We should try to create some shows together. And I said, okay. And so we had that conversation, and it was a real epiphany on my side, because I really had to really listen to what he was saying. And for the first time, I took it real serious. Now, flash forward to about 3 years later, I'm back in LA. Trent's living in the Bay Area. One day I get a knock at my door. And I open the door and it's Trent. And he has a suitcase with him. And he says, hey man, I'm here. And I said, hey, how long you in town for? He goes, I'm here. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, remember we talked in the DR? Yeah, I was serious, man. I'm here. I said, oh wow, so you're okay. So you're in LA. Let me take this in for a minute. I said, so what are you thinking? Where are you staying? He said, here. I said, here? Like, what do you mean, like here? He goes, here, at your house. I said, whoa, bro. I got a wife, and I got a kid. I got kids. I got a wife to answer to. I don't know if she's gonna allow that. And he goes, well, you said you were serious, and if you know Trent, he's a very literal guy. If you say something like that, he's gonna take it at face value. So he said, you said you were serious, so here I am. So I had to go talk to my wife and let her know that this was an idea that we had. And again, I needed to make some money because I had ran through the paper, y'all. I did some partying. I made a lot of bad investments. I bought a lot of Benzes and Porsches and all kinds of stuff. And so I was at a point to where I didn't know. Almost got to the point where I didn't know where my next meal was coming from. So, of course, I let Trent in. He stayed at my house, but he immediately went to work. When I say he immediately went to work, he put his stuff down in my guest room and then he disappeared. I didn't see him for another day or two. And then he showed back up at my house to change clothes and he said, I got an idea. We're going to shoot that show that you've been talking about that you wanted to do. I just need you to put it on paper. We're going to shoot it at Raphael Saadiq's studio. I said, Raphael Saadiq? Now, Raphael Saadiq is the lead singer of Tony, Tony, Tony. Y'all know him. Feels Good. It Never Rains in Southern California. You get the point. And so we go over to Raphael's studio and Trent introduces the idea that we want to shoot this. Well, he has a music studio, but he had a garage in the back. And that's where he stored all of his equipment and his instruments. And Trent says, if we could use this small warehouse portion of your studio, we're going to shoot a sitcom. And we need you to be the music director and put all the music in and yada, yada, yada. Well, Raphael, who has become a great, renowned television score person since then, had never done it. So we gave him his first opportunity, but I digress. Let me jump back in. We said, why don't we shoot this show here? Well, it wasn't big enough for more than, say, 2 sets, but we figured we'll build 2 sets, tear them down and build 2 more sets. Now we got 4 sets. And so we created this show, Love That Girl, which I've talked about before, but we created the show. And originally I had Nia Long attached to play the lead character, but then agents and lawyers get involved and they mess things up and they talk their clients out of doing certain things, which I got a lesson out of that. Let me tell you the lesson that I got out of that. I had named the project the Nia Long Project. The Nia Long Show is what I was naming the show, right? Just like I had done before that. The Jamie Foxx Show, I named it the Nia Long Show. But then when she fell out, now I was in a situation where I had to change the name of the show. So the lesson in that is never create a show and name it directly after the actor because it might bite you in the ass later on. And for me, it did. But I was able to pivot and I was introduced to Tatiana Ali. And then Raphael Saadiq had a song called Love That Girl on his CD. And I asked him, could I use the song and could I make the name of the show Love That Girl? And he said, sure, we'll do that. And so that's what we ended up doing. And we shot 4 episodes, the 4 episodes that I mentioned in a previous episode with Jeff Franklin giving me the money or helping me out with the money to do the show. We shot it on it's in Raphael's studio in his garage-like area of his studio. And the show came out fantastic. We got it on TV One. It went from 4 episodes to 65 episodes. And the rest of the story is history. But Trent being one of the motivating factors in me getting off my ass and really giving me a nice kick in the pants and making me realize who I was always and what I had done, my accomplishments in the past, and letting me know that if I took the same approach like he did in the music industry, if I took that approach and applied that to the television industry, it would work the same way. And he was 100% right. And from that Love That Girl experience, there's a lot of other things that came into play. But let's just say now we are the owners of Harvest Studios in Northridge, California. And we have shot more than 400 episodes of television at our studio at the time of us making this video. So in today's climate, as it relates to this whole entertainment industry, I definitely would recommend any person that's trying to get into the industry to just think independently. Do it independent. It's a lot of competition when you're trying to get an agent and you're trying to get a manager and or a lawyer and you're trying to go through the studio system. That's a hard hustle. That's a very hard hustle. And so I truly believe that the business is turning into an independent business because these studios can't service all of these new platforms that have come out, streaming platforms, fast channels, new networks, cable networks, terrestrial television networks that still exist. They can't handle the influx of content that will come their way. So I think that the filmmaker, the content creator in today's climate needs to be able to understand that they are a studio. They are capable of making content and taking it to the marketplace and selling it to a network or a streaming platform or licensing it to a streaming platform or network the same way. However, there's a difference. Now, if you're developing for a major, usually the major wants to have a lot of say so in what it is that you're developing. I guess the advantage is they pay you to develop. They give you the money, and if you have the reputation, you have the right team around you, meaning managers and agents. Well, a lot of times you can talk your way into some development money and develop a project that may or may not ever see the light of day, but you do get a check for it. And I can explain some scenarios where I've been in that position. But when you're doing it independently, you're not depending on anybody. You're only depending on your ability to execute and come through with the content and get it in the can and packaged up with a little bow on it. So now you have a new show that now you, or a movie that you have to go out and obtain licensing for, or be able to sell it to somebody in order for you to recoup your money that was spent. I don't think that there's a preferred way. Obviously, anybody who loves money knows that the big studios pay a lot more. When you're doing it independently, it's all on you. I mean, nobody's going to come in and clean your bathrooms and clean up after you in your office and stuff like that. It's all on you when you're doing it independently. And a lot of times you're spending your own money. You know, sometimes people have gambled with the house money. I know I probably got into the position I was in financially when I was in a bad situation because I gambled. I did gamble with the house money before, and it didn't work out in my favor, and I lost my shirt, but I didn't lose my pants. I was able to recover and get myself back in a good position because I was thinking independently. I thought, you know, I have a father who was a real estate broker, but he didn't work for any of the big brokerage houses like Century 21 or any of those. He was independent. He had his own independent office where I spent a lot of time nurturing what independent business was all about. So I guess in the back of my mind, I already knew what the freedom was like for real independence because I never saw my dad work a day for another person in my entire life. So I know that independence is definitely the way to go. As it relates to the film and television industry, it's kind of up to you. If you know, just it really depends on the way that you come into the business. A lot of times people come into the business after spending years and years at a university and getting a degree in filmmaking or whatever you want to call the degree that you would get there at USC Film School and all these different film schools. That wasn't my method of getting in. I came in a different way. So I don't really know that way, but I do know a lot of people that have come into the business that way. All I know is the independent route. And I think that what's going to happen in the near future, we're going to see a change in the industry. We're going to see a change in the acting business. We're going to see a change where I don't believe movie stars like we knew them in the past are going to exist anymore because the playing field's been leveled out. I think it's just going to be about your content. Reality shows showed us that in 2008, 2009. We thought reality shows would disappear, and they're still in full effect. And usually reality shows don't have any stars. They make stars. And I think that's what the new trend is going to be in Hollywood. But it's only going to happen if people continue with their independent efforts. I want to hear from you. So leave your comments and your questions below about being independent in the entertainment industry. I'll see you soon.